Right now, Pittsburgh's best sports show is about to begin. Call us or tweet us. We've got things to talk about on the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call.
All right, thanks a lot, Josh, and thank you for tuning into the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call. I'm Rich Walsh. I'll be joined by Jason Mackey in a matter of moments over in Studio A, and we're going to be talking about the Buccos, McCutcheon. But we're going to start with the Steelers here tonight. That's the big news of the night. We'll also, dabble in Penguins. A big night for Sidney Crosby, by the way, too. You just saw the highlights. But I want to start with Steelers because big news over on the south side. They got a huge game on Christmas Day against the Chiefs. They got to keep winning to still have a chance to win this division. It's in their own, they control their own destiny, Jace, we know that. But, they get good news. And this is the reason why I didn't pick them against the Ravens. I thought they could have beat the Ravens, but they didn't have George Pickens. They didn't have Deshaun Elliott. They didn't have Dante Jackson. They didn't have Larry Ogunjobi. And they didn't have Justin Fields. I think all those guys play. It sounds like it from hearing from George Pickens and watching practice today.
Yeah, Richie, and those are obviously very important guys. I look at the guys on the defensive side first. What did the Steelers struggle with against the Ravens? Stopping the run. Well, Deshaun Elliott is a huge part of that. Larry Ogunjobi is a lesser part, but still important. They need the coverage that Dante Jackson brings after the injury to Joey Porter Jr. And, no surprise, the biggest one of all, George Pickens. The Steelers, I thought, actually did move the ball reasonably well against the Ravens. The Russell Wilson turnovers were costly. But if you're going to tell me they can play the Chiefs with George Pickens, and I do believe he's going to play, yeah, I think they have a chance. If he doesn't play, I don't like their chances, but George Pickens is that explosive and that much of a mismatch creator.
Is he that important to the offense?
Yes.
Because if he is, he's going to command, $30 million a year here coming up soon.
He might. I've never seen a guy earn that much value in a contract without playing. I mean, look at the way this offense just, torpedoed, if that's the right word, but it's not as effective. The mismatches that he creates, the attention that he draws, especially the quarterback and the way he and Russell Wilson work together. I mean, that's what Russ does the best, those moon balls, throwing it up, giving a guy a chance to make a play. There's nobody better in the NFL than George Pickens. George Pickens, amazingly, has not had to play, and he really upped his value.
Yeah, that doesn't happen too often. It's usually the reverse, right? You have to play to get that deal. But for George Pickens, he showed how valuable he is on offense, especially for the run game. Just about every aspect of the offense, George Pickens needs to be out there to win this game. Defensively, like you said, Deshaun Elliott, but I think his role also will be helping to cover Travis Kelce, too.
Yeah, and Deshaun Elliott's been very good against tight ends this season. I'm glad you brought up the running game on the offense, though, Richie. I think that's a sneaky important part. Somebody might listen to us and say, what the heck does George Pickens have anything to do with the running game? It keeps teams from stacking the box. It forces them to play a different type of coverage, and Najee Harris has not been the same back with George Pickens out. They need to do more to establish the running game. That was part of the Ravens game. Again, they did not control the line of scrimmage. That goes both ways. If they're able to run the ball effectively, and I would like to see more Jaylen Warren, I thought that was an important ingredient in that Ravens game, but George Pickens changing defenses and the way they can play the Steelers, big-time importance.
Yeah, and you really see Najee Harris hasn't really been effective or too effective in the last, month and a half?
Yeah, I mean, 5-6 games, and their running game writ large has not been very good. I want to say they're not over 120 yards as a team since the Washington game, something like that. I mean, if you look at their season stats, they're about 10th in the NFL in rushing yards per game, but it just has not been anywhere near that effective. And they need to do that. They need to do that, one, for the pure yards and moving the ball, but also to set up play action. That's a big part of Arthur Smith's offense. That's a big part of what Russell Wilson does and does well. So if they're not able to run the ball, and again, we've seen some hiccups is the right word with some of the younger linemen, Zach Frazier, Broderick Jones, even Mason McCormick. Last week, I would argue, was not their best performance. They've been much better in the games leading up to it. But, yeah, I mean, Pickens plays. They're able to clear out the box a little bit and run the ball more effectively.
We were there. I still go back to Russell Wilson's fumble. I think if he doesn't fumble there, it's a totally different game. I understand what the Ravens did and moved the ball, and you maybe say, hey, it's a 7-point difference. But I think the momentum would have clearly been in the Steelers' favor at that point, and it's a different ball game.
Yep.
It's a different attitude by Lamar Jackson and in that offense and maybe they press a little bit more. If he doesn't fumble, I think the Steelers win that game.
Richie, I was talking to somebody earlier today who asked me about the sort of feel in the stadium. And you know what? You get that, right? Like you get a sense of whether Baltimore has the momentum, whether the Steelers have the momentum. And that was right after a shanked punt. The Steelers drive down. Things had changed. If the Steelers would have gotten a touchdown there, I do wonder what would have become of Baltimore, whether maybe Lamar Jackson forces something and he turns into the Lamar Jackson of old. And it kind of gave Baltimore second life. And I understand what Russell Wilson was doing. I'm not terribly upset at the fumble. Obviously, it can't happen. You don't like seeing it. But at the end of the day, the guy was trying to make a play. He was trying to score. How mad am I going to get about a guy who wants to get in the end zone? Was it right execution? No, it was not. But I don't know. I mean, I understand where he's coming from and what he was trying to do, especially given some of their red zone offense struggles this season.
But I would like to point out, Jason, and you probably think this is right here, when George Pickens isn't in there, or guys like him aren't in the offense or on the offense or on whatever, when guys are missing, guys tend to press. And I think Russell Wilson was pressing there.
Yeah, I mean, you think that you have to do so much more. They've had problems scoring touchdowns without George Pickens. Like, if you have your best offensive weapon, you go down there. You go down and you say, you know what, I trust that I can throw a fade up to George. I trust that we're going to be able to move the ball effectively enough to do that. But Russell Wilson's eyes got big. Again, I don't blame him. It's coming from a place of care. The last person I'm going to criticize for being like haphazard or something with controlling the ball and not turning it over is Russell Wilson. He's been very good in that department. But that's exactly it. They're trying too hard to do something.
And maybe the 27-year-old Russell Wilson makes the move and gets in the end zone, not the 37-year-old. All right, we got to take a break. Back in a couple of minutes. All right, welcome back to the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call. This is our GMC tweet of the night, and this is from BR Open Ice. With 3 assists tonight, Sidney Crosby has tied Mario Lemieux for the most in Penguins history, 1,033 assists. That puts him 12th all-time in the NHL as well. So good night for Sidney Crosby. He has a chance to break that. Their next game is they have a back-to-back series against the Islanders.
The Islanders,
yeah.
On the Islanders.
I want to say New Jersey, New York, but then people, who knows? The Islanders, away and then home. So he'll probably break it this weekend at some point. Good game for the Penguins. They needed games like this, especially a team against the Flyers. Maybe things are starting to click. Maybe they're turning around. I don't know. Are you a buyer right now?
Richie, I am a buyer. I'm a buyer. I can't believe we're here. I can't. The Penguins
neither can I.
Left for dead on the side of the road, motionless, however you want to describe it, man. But it started with that Thanksgiving Eve game, easy for me to say, against Vancouver. They're 9-2-1 since then. And honestly, they have not played perfect hockey. I mean, they've played good enough hockey. You don't win that many games by luck. Occasionally, the goaltending has been better. Sid is scoring now. If they get Gino going, I mean, up until a couple games ago, those two guys have largely not contributed. It's been others who have contributed. Philip Tomasino, Brian Rust getting a few. Blake Lizotte has been a revelation for the Penguins. Again, I'm not saying this team's going to shoot to the top of the Eastern Conference standings, but do I think that they can sustain some level of what they're doing right now and get into the playoffs? Yeah, I'm a buyer in that.
All right, let's go out to the phone lines. We got Josiah in San Antonio. Josiah, what's up?
Rich, hey, Jason. I got a couple quick questions. I know this one may be unpopular, but with the Steelers struggling with this receiving core, and I know this may be desperate, but I think they should take a flyer and take a risk with Deontay Johnson.
Well, he already got picked up by the Texans.
Gone.
They didn't even put in a claim for him.
And the reason why I'm saying it is because this receiving core is so thin, and Mike Williams doesn't look like he's working out. And my other question, Rich, is this. Do you think with Arthur Smith, every week we're questioning he's not getting Freiermuth involved, the offense kind of looks stagnant? What is your perception on the way his offense has been ran? Because I kind of think it's kind of weak, if you ask me.
Yeah, I mean, it has a lot to do with George Pickens, as we mentioned in the beginning of the show right now. I'd like to see them use Freiermuth more, and they were. It's just that, hey, when you're stacking the box and you can't run and then you get third and long situations, then you're kind of screwed, right? As for Deontay Johnson, I know he doesn't get along with few of those players in that locker room, maybe some important players. And I think that's a big reason why they didn't even put a claim in for the guy.
somebody who doesn't block when they're asked to block, somebody who doesn't go in the game when they're asked to go in the game. I'm sorry, Josiah. I do not want that guy on my team. I don't want Deontay Johnson anywhere near the Steelers locker room. That's not a perfect team. There are some things they need to improve upon, but Richie's in there. I'm in there. It's a pretty good group. They're efforting towards something bigger. It's a likable group. Somebody who's going to be an attitude problem, absolutely not. And I'm with you on utilizing Freiermuth more. It is odd. I mean, one of the things we knew about Arthur Smith's offense was that they like to spread the ball around, and that includes multiple tight ends, and he's done that. That it hasn't included Pat more than it has, it's a bit surprising. And it seems like he'll get on a heater, 4 or 5 catches in a couple-week span, and then all of a sudden we're back to what we saw on Saturday where he had, 3 for 16. The inconsistency there, they have not figured that out yet.
All right, let's go to Dave in Munhall. How you doing, Dave? Dave.
Yeah, I have great admiration for Wido and Omar Khan, what they've done with the offensive line, the quarterback situation, but I feel like they've given George Pickens a great deal of power by showing that the offense is pretty much ineffective.
Yeah, Dave, I appreciate the call. I mean, I understand people might think he has a great deal of power, but I still think the power is in the Steelers' hands. They control him for another year, Jason, and if they don't like how he performs next year, they're going to go out and sign another receiver, right? Everyone is replaceable no matter what you do.
Yeah.
And they're going to get another receiver this offseason, 100%. Maybe draft one high. But then you're going to deal with trying to pay him or figure out if you're going to pay him. I personally don't know if I would spend $30 million a year on him, not knowing you know what you're going to get on the field, but we've seen some issues off the field.
I'm not as concerned about the off-field stuff with George Pickens, Richie. I'm not. I think you can iron that out. I think you can figure that out with club culture. I've been around George Pickens to know I don't think he's a bad person. He's maybe an immature person. I think he has some growing up to do. I wouldn't, use that and make a move elsewhere with him. I think he's a tremendous football player. I think I understand what Dave is saying and where he's coming from. Basically, that Omar Khan has not done enough to rectify the number 2 wide receiver spot, so now it looks like George Pickens kind of controls everything. There's some kernel of truth there, but again, those guys have to fix that spot. They have to know. I mean, they've been in so many conversations. They're clearly aware that the Steelers are deficient in that spot. So whether it's the draft, free agency, trade, something this offseason, I think they will do that. And yeah, I mean, it's a discussion to me independent of George Pickens. George Pickens has a lot of value to the Steelers, and there's absolutely nothing wrong, in my opinion, with keeping him around.
All right, let's go out to Rick in Chippewa. How you doing, Rick?
Guys, I wanted your thoughts on 5 other receivers. Why aren't we throwing to them? And who is the backup? And another thing I wanted to ask was, are you sold on Russell Wilson versus Fields?
Yeah, I am sold on Russell Wilson over Fields. I mean, you can see this offense looks a ton better. I like Fields. I like what he can do, but you saw he put them in situations that weren't favorable. And Russell Wilson, when he runs that offense, it looks more efficient.
Yeah, I have no problem at all with Russell Wilson coming back. I don't understand how the narrative changed with him. Guys, I mean, he has 2 turnovers, which happen. You don't like him, but that's going to happen. And people are saying that he's not a future quarterback of this team. I'm sorry, I would do a Baker Mayfield-like extension with him, 3 years, $100 million, something like that. But to the other point, the Steelers have their flaws, that they're not throwing the ball enough to Ben Skoranek or Van Jefferson. Maybe Mike Williams, I can understand that. That's been a strange one. You try to rectify that spot, as I was talking about earlier, and they haven't been able to do it. But, I mean, you got to get open. These guys were at the game, Richie. I mean, they're not running down the field wide open, and Russell's just missing them. I mean, Van Jefferson is running into a mass of people, and he doesn't really have the profile or, I don't know, the ability, the something. Scotty Miller, throw him in that conversation as well. It's not like these guys are screaming, throw me the ball, I'm wide open. It's not that way.
No. I mean, when Van Jefferson is basically your number 1 receiver right now, of course, Russell Wilson is going to struggle a little bit. Let's go out to Mike in Blairsville. How you doing, Mike?
How you doing, Rich? I was just wondering, I wanted to ask if Joey Penalty Jr. is going to play Wednesday.
No, he's not going to play. He didn't practice today. He's dealing with a knee injury. I don't know how long he's going to be out for, but I don't expect him to play in this game. And look, Jason, if you look at all the people that they're potentially in and out, I think you can get away with Joey Porter Jr. missing this game.
You can get away with it. It's not preferable, and I understand the caller's going to call him Joey Penalty Jr. or Joey Flags or whatever. Yeah. It hasn't been what you would want for his sophomore season. I'm sorry. I'm still a Joey Porter Jr. believer. I think there's a lot there. I think he's a darn good football player. A little too handsy. You need to work with his technique a little bit. But, yeah, I would take Joey Porter Jr. anytime he's able to come back. It's good news for me that Dante Jackson's going to be available. I do worry a little bit about a secondary that includes James Pierre and Corey Trice Jr. Nothing against those guys, but this is a formidable group of wide receivers on the Kansas City side. So good news that Dante Jackson will play anyway.
Yeah, no question about it. And you know what? I think it's debatable who was the better corner this year, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, they've both had their flaws. They're both playing really like number 2 corners. The problem is the Steelers don't have, a true number 1 shutdown guy. I think eventually Joey Porter Jr. can get there. Dante Jackson has done a nice job creating turnovers. I believe he has 5. But the rest of the guys are kind of unproven. And are you going to use Cam Sutton on the outside? I don't know if I love that. Maybe in short bursts or something. But, yeah, I mean, they have a bunch of 2s and 3s, and they're going to try to make it work probably with scheme against Patrick Mahomes and company.
All right, we got to take a break. Back in a couple minutes. All right, now it's time to turn things over to Ken Rice to find out, Josh Taylor, to find out what's coming up on KDK News at 11. I'm just so used to saying Ken.
Understandably so, but here's what we're working on tonight. Breaking news out of Wilkinsburg, where police are telling us about a double shooting investigation, plus the search for the killer after a man was found shot in an alley in Aliquippa. All that and more coming up at 11. We'll see you then.
Thanks a lot, Josh Taylor. See you in a couple minutes. All right, Jason Mackey, Kutch re-signed with the Buccos. Do you like it? 1 year, $5 million. Could they have spent the money somewhere else? I mean, I like bringing them back.
Yeah, I don't have any problem with it, Richie. I mean, I think the problem and why people are upset is everything else with the Pirates right now. You look at their offseason, all these guys have signed other places. The fans are looking at the Pirates to do something, other than sign Andrew McCutchen. But I'm sorry, they shouldn't have kicked him to the curb. He had too good of a year last year.
How about Spence? How about go out and try to get a Jock Peterson? They need an outfielder, right? Maybe go a Christian Walker.
Well, Christian Walker's gone.
Yeah, I know. Either one of those guys. Both are gone, right?
I think Jock Peterson's still out there, even if maybe he signed in the middle of the night. Yeah. Either way, I mean, you also have to remember these guys have to want to come here. And right now the Pirates haven't created an environment that people want to sign up to be a part of.
Yeah, they need to go out and get a couple guys. I don't know what's left out there. I just feel like it's a wait and see kind of thing, right?
Yeah, I mean, Richie, they're telling us what they think of their team. And what they think of their team is the improvements have to come internally, And if they can't fix Jack Sawinski, Henry Davis at all, it's going to be a long season.
All right, let's hope it's not a long season. Thanks a lot, Jason. We'll see you same time, same place tomorrow. Hopefully we see you guys on KDK News with Josh Taylor in a couple minutes.